The avoidant maintained specific expectations about how you would respond to their patterns, to their rejection, to their withdrawal, to relationship ending. Expectations built on observations of your behavior throughout relationship and built on their experience with previous partners who responded predictably to their defended patterns. They expected you would remain stuck processing relationship loss for extended period, would struggle to function without them in your life, would demonstrate visible suffering that confirmed their importance and validated their worth. They expected you would chase them despite their withdrawal or rejection, would pursue them attempting to change their mind or restore connection, would remain oriented toward them rather than redirecting focus toward your own healing and forward movement. They expected you would wait for them indefinitely, would remain available as backup option they could return to if other options proved unsatisfying, or if they eventually decided you were worth their investment, would organize your life around possibility of their return, rather than building satisfying life independent of them. These expectations felt reasonable to avoidant based on your previous behavior. You pursued when they withdrew during relationship. You tolerated their patterns for extended periods, suggesting unlimited patience. You demonstrated hurt when they rejected you, suggesting their absence would devastate you. You invested so much in relationship, suggesting you valued them highly enough to wait, hoping they would eventually reciprocate adequately. Yet your actual response violated every element of their expectations in ways that created panic in their defended psychology. You did not remain stuck. You processed grief relatively quickly and moved forward, building satisfying life that appears genuinely fulfilling rather than performing happiness while secretly suffering. You are thriving in visible ways that contradict their assumption you needed them for your well-being, that their presence enhanced your life, that losing them created void you would struggle to fill. You did not chase them. You accepted their withdrawal or rejection definitively and disappeared completely, rather than pursuing or attempting to restore connection. Your complete indifference to their patterns and their choices destroyed their sense of control over relationship dynamic, eliminated their power to determine engagement level while keeping you available, demonstrated they were not important enough to you to warrant pursuit despite their defended behavior. You did not wait for them. You moved forward decisively, replacing relationship with them with better version of your life that includes activities, connections, pursuits that engage you authentically, rather than organizing life around hoping for their return. Your forward movement proved relationship with them was obstacle preventing you from building satisfying life, rather than being enhancement. You should be devastated about losing. The panic manifests through the avoidance recognition that all their defended assumptions about themselves and about their importance to you were wrong. They assumed they were more important to you than you were to them. This assumption justified their patterns by suggesting you would tolerate inadequacy to maintain access to valuable them. Your thriving without them proves they were not as important as assumption required, that you can build satisfying life without them, suggesting their presence was not essential enhancement they believed it was. They assumed they maintained control over relationship through their defended patterns. This assumption made withdrawal feel safe because control meant they could retreat and return at will, knowing you would remain available. Your indifference eliminated their control by making their withdrawal irrelevant to your forward movement, by demonstrating they cannot determine your availability through their choices, because you have chosen definitively that they will not be part of your life. They assumed they were valuable catch you would wait for. This assumption protected ego by positioning them as prize worth waiting for, rather than as inadequate partner people leave. Your replacement of them with better life proves they were not prize but were limitation, not person worth waiting for, but person preventing you from building life you are now successfully building without them. The panic particularly intensifies when avoidant observes or learns specific details about your thriving that contradict defended narratives they constructed. You appear genuinely happy rather than performing happiness to make them jealous. Genuine happiness proves their assumption you needed them for well-being was wrong. You are pursuing interests and activities that engage you authentically rather than distracting yourself from pain about losing them. Authentic engagement proves you have moved on rather than remaining stuck as they expected. You are connecting with new people or building deeper relationships with existing friends rather than isolating yourself processing loss. Healthy connection proves you replaced relationship with them with satisfying social life rather than remaining focused on what you lost. You demonstrate confidence and vitality rather than appearing diminished by their absence. Demonstrated strength proves losing them freed you rather than devastated you. Each observation contradicts their expectations and forces recognition that perhaps they were not as important as their ego required believing. Perhaps their patterns cost them something valuable they assumed would remain available. Perhaps you are genuinely better without them rather than struggling without them, as their defended assumptions predicted you would struggle. They expected you to stay stuck. You're thriving in ways they never imagined possible. The avoidant expected relationship ending to devastate you in ways that would keep you stuck for extended period. Stuck processing loss, stuck grieving what could have been, stuck analyzing what went wrong, stuck hoping for reconciliation, stuck unable to move forward without them in your life. This expectation stemmed from their observations during relationship where you demonstrated significant investment, where you appeared deeply attached to them, where you struggled visibly when they withdrew or created distance, where you organized much of your life around accommodating their patterns and maintaining connection despite their inadequacy. They assumed this level of investment and attachment meant losing them would create profound suffering that would persist for months or years, that you would struggle to function without them, that grief about losing relationship would dominate your experience, preventing genuine forward movement. They particularly expected you would remain stuck in specific ways that would confirm their importance and validate their worth. They expected you would spend extended time analyzing relationship, trying to understand what went wrong, what you could have done differently, whether you gave up too easily. This analysis would keep you psychologically oriented toward them rather than redirecting focus toward your independent life. They expected you would remain on social media posting content designed to get their attention, or demonstrating sadness about loss. This visible processing would confirm you were stuck grieving them rather than moving forward. They expected you would ask mutual friends about them, obsessively seeking information about their life and whether they mentioned you. This information seeking would demonstrate you remained focused on them rather than building life independent of their patterns. They expected you would avoid activities you enjoyed together because those activities would be too painful without them. This avoidance would prove relationship with them was central to your life in ways that absence makes life significantly diminished. Yet you responded with opposite of expected stuck behavior by processing grief relatively quickly and moving forward, building genuinely satisfying life. You spent brief, appropriate period grieving relationship, then redirected energy toward healing and growth rather than remaining indefinitely stuck in analysis or hoping for reconciliation. You stopped monitoring their social media and stopped asking friends about them, demonstrating you released psychological focus on them rather than remaining oriented toward tracking their life. You resumed or discovered activities that engage you authentically, filling your life with pursuits that provide genuine satisfaction rather than serving as distraction from pain about losing them. You are building social connections, pursuing professional goals, investing in personal development, engaging with hobbies and interests in ways that create fulfilling life rather than life organized around void their absence supposedly created. The thriving particularly manifests through visible happiness and vitality that contradicts their expectation. You would appear diminished by losing them. You look healthier, better physical appearance suggesting you are taking care of yourself rather than neglecting self-care while grieving. You appear more energized, vitality suggesting you are engaged with life rather than depleted by loss. You demonstrate confidence, self-assurance suggesting you recognize your worth rather than questioning value because they rejected you or their patterns drove you away. You show genuine joy, authentic happiness rather than performed contentment designed to hide suffering. These visible indicators of thriving prove you are genuinely doing well rather than pretending to do well while secretly struggling. Prove losing them freed you rather than devastated you. Prove relationship with them was limiting your flourishing rather than enhancing your well-being. Your thriving also includes specific accomplishments or developments that prove you are moving forward rather than remaining stuck. You may have advanced professionally in ways relationship with them prevented, getting promotion, starting new job, pursuing education or training that improves your career prospects. You may have developed new skills or pursued interests you neglected during relationship, learning instrument, taking up sport, Engage in creative pursuits that fill your life with satisfaction. Their patterns prevented you from pursuing. You may have deepened existing friendships or formed new meaningful connections. Building social life that provides support and enjoyment relationship with them limited because you spent so much energy accommodating their patterns. You may have improved your physical health through exercise or better self-care, taking care of yourself in ways you neglected while focusing energy on maintaining unsustainable relationship. Each accomplishment demonstrates you used time since relationship ended productively rather than remaining stuck. Proves you are building better life rather than grieving loss of inadequate relationship. The unexpected thriving creates panic for avoidant because it contradicts multiple defended assumptions about themselves and about relationship. They assumed they were essential to your happiness. Your thriving proves they were not essential, but were actually obstacle to happiness you are now experiencing. They assumed relationship with them enhanced your life significantly. Your visible improvement proves relationship limited rather than enhanced you. They assumed you needed them. Your successful independent functioning proves you do not need them and actually function better without them. They assumed losing them would create lasting negative impact. Your quick recovery and forward movement proved their impact was temporary, and losing them created positive change rather than lasting harm. Each contradicted assumption forces recognition that perhaps they were not as important as ego required believing. Perhaps their patterns were more harmful than they acknowledged. Perhaps you made correct decision leaving relationship that was preventing you from thriving in ways you are now demonstrating. Understanding that you are thriving in ways they never imagined possible allows you to recognize why your unexpected success creates panic for them. They built their ego and their self-concept partly on assumption you needed them, that relationship with them enhanced your life, that losing them would devastate you in ways that would confirm their importance. Your thriving destroys these ego-protective assumptions by proving opposite. You do not need them, relationship limited rather than enhanced you, losing them freed you to build better life than relationship allowed. The panic comes from facing that their defended patterns cost them relationship with someone who is clearly thriving without them, from recognizing they lost someone valuable who has moved forward successfully while they remain stuck processing loss they created through their inadequacy, from understanding that their importance to you was less than their ego needed believing, and that their patterns prevented you from flourishing in ways your current thriving demonstrates was always possible once their limiting presence was removed from your life. They expected you to chase. Your complete indifference destroyed their sense of control. The avoidant expected you would chase them after relationship ended or after their patterns created distance, expected you would pursue them despite their withdrawal, would attempt to restore connection despite their rejection, would demonstrate through your pursuit that you valued them enough to fight for relationship despite their demonstrated inadequacy. This expectation stemmed from established pattern during relationship where you consistently pursued when they withdrew, where you worked to close distance they created, where you maintained connection despite their patterns making connection difficult. They learned through repeated cycles that withdrawal generated your pursuit, that creating distance prompted you to work to restore closeness, that their defended behavior did not cost them your presence because you would continue pursuing, regardless of how inadequately they reciprocated your pursuit. The expected pursuit served multiple functions in avoidance defended psychology that made pursuit feel necessary and inevitable. Your pursuit validated their worth by demonstrating you valued them enough to chase despite their patterns, confirmed they were important enough to warrant your continued effort, proved they were desirable enough that withdrawal did not end your interest. Your pursuit also maintained their control over relationship dynamic by keeping engagement level determined by their choices. They could withdraw knowing you would pursue, could create distance knowing you would close it, could be inconsistent knowing you would remain reliable. Your pursuit provided them defended comfortable position where they received relationship benefits without providing adequate reciprocation, where they maintained autonomy while accessing your consistent presence, where they controlled distance while you did work of maintaining connection. The expected pursuit felt so certain, based on established pattern, that avoidant assumed pursuit would continue indefinitely, regardless of how inadequately they behaved or how definitively they rejected you. Yet you responded with complete opposite of expected pursuit by demonstrating total indifference to their patterns, their choices, their absence from your life. You did not pursue when they withdrew. You accepted withdrawal as their choice and used it as opportunity to protect yourself through implementing your own distance. You did not attempt to restore connection after rejection. You treated rejection as definitive ending rather than as obstacle to overcome through demonstrating your value. You did not chase them hoping to change their mind. You redirected all energy toward your own healing and forward movement rather than remaining oriented toward them and hoping for their return. You did not demonstrate through any behavior that you valued them enough to pursue. Your complete absence of pursuit communicated they were not worth chasing, not important enough to warrant continued effort, not valuable enough to justify fighting for relationship they demonstrated through patterns they could not sustain. The complete indifference manifested through specific behaviors that proved you were genuinely uninterested rather than performing indifference as strategy. You stopped all contact without explanation or final message. Disappearance communicated they were not even worth conversation about ending or about your feelings. You stopped monitoring their social media completely. Lack of tracking proved you were not interested in their life or their activities or whether they mentioned you. You stopped asking mutual friends about them. Absence of information seeking demonstrated they occupied zero space in your thoughts or concerns. You appeared completely unbothered when you encountered them or when their name came up. Lack of visible emotional reaction proved they no longer affected you in any significant way. You redirected all attention and energy toward your own life without any apparent thought about them. Your focus on independent pursuits proved they were irrelevant to your current existence rather than being person you thought about constantly despite not pursuing. The indifference destroyed avoidance sense of control by eliminating all the power their withdrawal strategy typically provided. Throughout relationship, their withdrawal gave them control over engagement level, control over your emotional state, control over relationship progression, control over whether relationship continued. Your pursuit during their withdrawal confirmed their control because your behavior remained predictable and manageable regardless of their patterns. Your indifference eliminated all this control by making their withdrawal irrelevant. They withdrew, but you did not pursue, so withdrawal achieved nothing they intended. They created distance, but you used distance to leave. So their distance served your purposes rather than their purposes. They rejected you, but you treated rejection as mutual decision. So rejection did not give them power position they expected. Your indifference proved they do not control your behavior, cannot determine your emotional state through their actions, cannot maintain relationship on their terms. Because you have decided definitively there will be no relationship regardless of what terms they might eventually offer. The destroyed control particularly panics avoidant, because control was central psychological need their pattern served. They maintained control through withdrawal to manage their defended discomfort, to protect themselves from vulnerability. Intimacy would require, to ensure they could escape if relationship threatened their defended autonomy. Your indifference makes control irrelevant because there is nothing left to control. You are not pursuing, so they cannot control your pursuit. You are not available, so they cannot control engagement level. You have moved on, so they cannot control whether relationship continues. The elimination of control forces, recognition that their withdrawal strategy backfired completely. Instead of maintaining control while keeping you available, withdrawal gave you opportunity to leave definitively. Instead of creating distance they could close when ready, they created permanent separation. They cannot reverse without your cooperation. You are not providing. Your indifference also proves specific ego-wounding recognition. They are not important enough to chase, not valuable enough to pursue, not special enough to warrant fighting for. Throughout relationship, your pursuit suggested they possessed high value that justified your effort despite their inadequacy. Your indifference suggests opposite. They do not possess sufficient value to warrant pursuit. Their importance is insufficient to generate your continued interest. Their worth does not justify fighting for relationship with them. This recognition wounds ego that depended on believing they were valuable person worth pursuing, special person whose patterns should be tolerated because access to them justified tolerance, important person who would be missed and chased if they withdrew or rejected. Your indifference teaches them they are not as valuable as your pursuit led them to believe, not as important as their ego required believing, not as special as their defended self-concept suggested. Understanding that your indifference destroyed their control allows you to recognize why lack of pursuit creates panic for them. Their entire defensive strategy depended on your predictable pursuit that confirmed their worth, maintained their control, allowed comfortable defended position while accessing relationship benefits. Your indifference eliminated all these defended functions by proving you will not pursue them, by demonstrating they cannot control dynamic when you refuse to participate, by communicating they are not valuable enough to warrant chase they assumed was inevitable. The panic comes from facing they lost all power they assumed withdrawal gave them, from recognizing their patterns cost them relationship in permanent way their control cannot reverse, from understanding their importance was conditional on adequate reciprocation they never provided, and that absence of reciprocation means absence of your pursuit. They depended on for validating their worth and maintaining their defended, comfortable position that required your continued pursuit despite their consistent inadequacy. They expected you to wait, you replaced them with a better version of your life. The avoidant expected you would wait for them indefinitely, despite relationship ending or despite their patterns creating separation, expected you would remain psychologically available for their potential return, would organize your life around possibility. They might eventually decide you were worth their investment, would keep yourself accessible as backup option. They could pursue if other options proved unsatisfying, or if they eventually developed capacity for relationship they currently lacked. This expectation felt reasonable based on your demonstrated patience throughout relationship, where you waited through their withdrawals, tolerated their patterns hoping they would change, remained invested despite inadequate reciprocation, suggesting unlimited patience that would extend beyond relationship ending. They assumed your significant investment meant you would not genuinely move on, but would remain oriented toward them, would not fully commit to new relationships because you would be comparing others to them, would not build completely satisfying independent life because you would be preserving space for their potential return. The expected waiting served specific functions for avoidance defended psychology that made waiting feel necessary and inevitable. Your waiting would maintain their option to return if they chose. Knowing you remained available created safety net where they could explore other options or take time to determine what they wanted without risking permanent loss of you. Your waiting would protect their ego by confirming you valued them highly enough to remain available despite their rejection or inadequacy. Waiting would demonstrate relationship meant more to you than it meant to them, preserving flattering dynamic where you were more invested partner. Your waiting would maintain their control over relationship timeline. They could determine if and when reconnection occurred, because your waiting meant reconnection required only their decision rather than requiring mutual agreement. Your waiting would allow them to avoid facing permanent consequences of their patterns. If you remained available, their inadequacy cost them nothing permanent, allowing continued defended comfortable belief their patterns are tolerable. Yet you responded with complete opposite of expected waiting by decisively replacing them with better version of your life that includes no space for their return. You did not organize life around hoping for reconnection. You built satisfying life pursuing goals, interests, relationships that engage you authentically rather than serving as placeholder activities while waiting for them. You did not remain psychologically available for their return. You closed door definitively treating relationship as completed chapter rather than as paused situation that might resume. You did not preserve emotional space for them. You processed relationship, grieved appropriately, then released attachment, redirecting emotional energy toward present and future rather than remaining oriented toward past relationship with them. You did not keep yourself accessible as backup option. You moved forward in ways that communicate clearly you are unavailable for their potential future interest because you have chosen different life that does not include them. The replacement particularly manifests through your building life that is visibly better than life you had while in relationship with them. You are pursuing opportunities you neglected during relationship. Career advancement, education, travel, experiences that relationship with them prevented you pursuing because you invested so much energy accommodating their patterns. You are developing yourself in ways relationship limited. Personal growth, new skills, expanded interests that you now have energy and time for because you are not depleting yourself, maintaining unsustainable relationship. You are investing in relationships that provide reciprocal support, friendships, family connections, potentially new romantic interest that demonstrates healthy partnership in ways relationship with avoidant never demonstrated. You are creating life filled with activities and pursuits that bring genuine satisfaction, hobbies, creative endeavors, physical activities, social engagement that fills time you previously spent accommodating avoidance patterns or recovering from harm those patterns created. Your better life proves relationship with them was obstacle preventing you from building satisfying existence rather than being enhancement you should be devastated about losing. During relationship, you sacrificed pursuing opportunities because relationship consumed energy and emotional resources. You limited personal growth because focus remained on accommodating their patterns rather than developing yourself. You neglected relationships because you prioritized unsustainable relationship with avoidant over maintaining healthy connections. You engaged in fewer satisfying activities because time and energy went toward managing relationship rather than toward pursuits that brought fulfillment. The better life you are now building demonstrates all these sacrifices were unnecessary limitations imposed by relationship with them. Limitations you are no longer accepting now that their limiting presence has been removed, allowing you to pursue life you always had capacity to build, but that relationship prevented you from building. The replacement creates panic for avoidant because it proves they were not prize you would wait for, but were obstacle you needed to remove to build satisfying life. They assumed they were valuable enough that you would wait hoping for their return, that relationship with them was enhancement significant enough that life without them would feel diminished, requiring you to hope for reconnection to restore life quality. Your better life without them proves opposite assumptions. You are not waiting because moving forward proved more rewarding than waiting. Relationship with them was not enhancement but was limitation, preventing you from thriving. Life without them exceeds life with them in every meaningful measure. This recognition wounds ego that depended on believing they were a valuable person worth waiting for. Forces facing that their patterns cost them relationship with someone who has demonstrably moved on to better life, rather than remaining stuck hoping for their return. The panic particularly intensifies when avoidant recognizes your replacement of them is permanent rather than temporary. They may have assumed you were moving forward as coping mechanism while secretly hoping for their return, that your better life was distraction from pain about losing them rather than genuine satisfaction with life that no longer includes them. Yet evidence accumulates proving your replacement is authentic permanent choice rather than temporary coping. You maintain better life consistently across time rather than cycling between appearing fine and appearing devastated. You demonstrate no interest in their life or activities, suggesting genuine release rather than strategic indifference while monitoring them. You show no signs of reserving emotional space for them, suggesting you have committed fully to present life rather than hedging against possibility of their return. The permanent quality of replacement proves you have genuinely chosen life without them as preferable to any potential future with them, that you assessed relationship and determined building independent life exceeds any value reconnection could provide. Understanding that you replaced them with better life allows you to recognize why replacement, rather than waiting, creates panic for them. They expected waiting that would maintain their option to return, protect their ego through demonstrating your higher investment, preserve their control over relationship timeline, prevent them from facing permanent consequences. Your replacement eliminated all these expected benefits by proving you will not wait, that moving forward proved more valuable than preserving option for their return, that you control your life's direction, independent of their potential choices, that their patterns have permanent consequence of losing you to better life you are now successfully building.